and start the meeting, call the meeting to order. It is so good to see you all here this morning, bright and early. And, oh, that's okay. Good morning, Mayor.
You put the Bible here for any particular reason? Do I need this today?
You know, I was wondering whose it was.
I'll take it.
We want to welcome you all to this meeting of the Community Redevelopment Agency. We're glad you're here this morning. We've got a relatively short agenda, but sometimes that doesn't say a whole lot. If you are interested in speaking on any of the items, and Wayne is going to talk to you about our new procedure for handling speakers on individual items, but if you're interested in speaking on any item on the agenda, there are speaker forms in the back. If you would fill one of those out when you come to the podium, you'll have 3 minutes to speak, and we ask you to give your name and address for the record prior to your remarks. Okay. So, Mr. Assistant City Manager, you want to talk to us about the agenda modification?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman and board members. We have 2 items that have been pulled for off the consent items for discussion. We have item 5.02 and 5.03 that was pulled by board member Williams Cox. In addition, I would like to make a modification to item number 7, unagenda items. That needs to be broken into 2 components. We have a slot scheduled for speakers on unagenda items that needs to be separated by the last item, which would be item 8, CRA board member information and sharing of ideas. With that, that's the modifications that we have identified. Okay. Regarding the public participation process, in line with the City Commission action last night, there will be 3 opportunities for the community to have public input at this board meeting. First, if you need to speak on an agenda item, we have a slot at the very beginning of the meeting. You can do that, or you can choose to speak at the time the item is brought up for discussion. So it's either one or the other, and you will have 3 minutes for that. For those speakers who want to speak on items that are not on the agenda, you will have the opportunity at the very end of the meeting for that period. Roxanne, who's taking up the speaker cards?
Sherry and Jack Porter in the back.
Okay. So when I call your name, we'll try to separate them out. When I call your name this morning, if you want to talk before the item or during the item's discussion, we'll make that evident as we bring the speakers up. All
right. Thank you, Mr. Assistant City Manager. Is there a motion to accept the agenda as modified? So there's a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item 3.01, presentation and update. Board members, I have asked the Assistant City Manager to include this item on the agenda because in the past there were a couple of chairmen or chairpersons of the Citizen Advisory Committee that had requested that they be given an opportunity to present. Sometimes they might not have thought that staff had presented items exactly like they would have or wanted to, and so I asked the City Manager to include this item on the agenda as we do with our intergovernmental agency or blueprint. We give the Citizen Advisory Committee chairperson an opportunity to make a presentation prior to taking up the agenda item. So with that, I don't know if he has any formal remarks, but he is here. Eric Johnson. Eric, where are you? I know I saw him earlier. Oh, there he is. Eric, you want to just introduce yourself and any remarks you want to make?
Sure, thank you. As has already been stated, my name is Eric Johnson. I'm the current chair of the Citizens Advisory Committee for the Greater Frenchtown Southside CRA. First, I would like to congratulate and thank this reconstituted CRA board's efforts and staff for this opportunity to hear directly the consensus of the CAC. As chair, it is my goal to accurately convey the sentiments of the council and moderate the consensus building process as it relates to the GFS district. I was born and raised here in Tallahassee, Leon County, and have, like many of you here, observed the rapid pace of development in various sectors of our community. The Commission wisely established the Greater Frenchtown Southside District to encourage redevelopment in these areas that were falling behind the pace of development in the larger community. We have observed working-class neighborhoods slowly decline to areas many choose to avoid. To understand the contrast, all one needs to do is take a drive or stroll along FAMU Way to see the wonderful development along the north side of the road and north side of the tracks, and the Villa Mitchell neighborhood of Greater Bond on the south. Unfortunately, this contrast is not limited to Greater Bond or the GFS district, but has become the current state of affairs of our twice-honored All-American city. I think we are at a point where awareness of this contrast and inequity is keen amongst the citizenry, regardless of socioeconomic status, and the desire is great to act in substantial ways that advance the redevelopment of these areas and encourage a sense of well-being amongst residents. We're not here to complain or find fault, but to express what we believe to be the sentiment of the council and the residents we attempt to represent. The reoccurring theme that I hear is related to affordable housing and home ownership. While it is evident I am new to this arena and not privy to all the work done and being done relative to affordable housing, the urgency of the need is significant and necessitates strategic and innovative methods. Methods that have the buy-in of residents on the front end, during, and afterwards. I'd like to encourage this board to think big and consider ways we can work together to leverage the assets of our city to address the lack of affordable housing. We prefer more projects like Carolina Oaks and Frenchtown and less projects like Casanas Village. We understand home ownership is not prudent for all citizens, but it is the best defense against gentrification and an excellent opportunity at wealth accumulation for lower income working class residents. We have discussed with staff a block-by-block redevelopment concept, as well as demolition and replacement of housing stock that is beyond repair. We look forward to hearing from this board, once staff presents the status of these items. We have also suggested to staff that the Citizens Advisory Committee meet monthly so as to allow sufficient time to hear projects and proposals without elongated meeting times. We're of the opinion that the months not currently scheduled would be primarily for community forum style meetings that would promote formulation of projects in a collaborative atmosphere with residents. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to working together with you in the redevelopment of the district.
Eric, thank you. Are there any questions for Eric? Comments, Board Member Williams-Cox? Eric?
Not a question. I want to say thank you, Mr. Chair, for coming and providing that information in a very succinct manner. And just know that I believe we're all on board to do the things that you're asking there, to try to do everything within our power to make sure that the community and the organizations you represent get what it needs.
Yeah, and I want to say as well, Eric, your remarks were powerful, right on point, and I can tell that you are going to be a phenomenal leader for that Citizen Advisory Council. You've already identified the issues that are important to the Frenchtown Southside CRA and methods for us working together to get there. And so we're committed to that. We are laser focused on issues affecting the Frenchtown Southside CRA at this point, and look forward to your leadership in helping us to move these initiatives forward. So thank you for coming this morning, and we look forward to those regular updates. The other thing I wanted to say, and certainly the affordable housing, that is one of our top priorities as a commission and board, and so we certainly look forward to working with you on that. So your remarks were right on point. So thank you. Item number 4, public comments. Do we have any speakers, Mr. Assistant City Manager? Or Melissa?
Yes, we do. We have 3 speakers.
Okay. Who is our first speaker?
Ms. Sylvia Hubbard, would you like to speak now or before the agenda item?
When the agenda item is being considered.
Great.
All right. If you'd give us your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes. Ms. Hubbard.
Sylvia Hubbard, 311 Gale Avenue. I'm here in response to the Big Beans Cares annual report where they mentioned me. I've worked in the HIV field for over 20 years. I see over 1,000 people who are high risk or HIV positive doing that for $105 annually for the past 15 years. I'm not sure as to why Rob Renzi decided to put that he's suing me in his report. I'm not sure why he's even suing me. What I do know is since 2006 that he aggressively taunted Jeffrey Pope. Even when Jeffrey Pope was dead, he was trying to prevent him from being on an email list of a community meeting that Rob Renzi never even attended. It was heartbreaking to watch this man who was living with HIV struggle, and all he wanted to do was get $2,000 so that black people living with HIV could receive $25 or $30 to engage in speaking engagements in the community. Jeffrey Pope even volunteered at Big Ben Cares, and 1 year was voted as Volunteer of the Year. So for him to pursue this man and tell everybody that he had this lawsuit, and turn out he didn't even have a lawsuit, I had to convince Jeffrey to seek a lawyer to sue him to try to stop him from bullying him through these meetings, and if he didn't attend, his staff would take up the bullying. All the documents are in here, well, some of the documents are in here. After the lawsuit was settled, it was proven that Rob Renzi had lied to the public about a lawsuit against Jeffrey Pope, a white man living with HIV/AIDS. The reason I took this up, in one meeting for 45 minutes, he cussed this man. And everybody sit and watched it happen until I said enough of that. And all the while, Jeffrey was saying, I'm sorry. I didn't know I couldn't do that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And that meant nothing. So the whole life after that, that was in 2006, this man was tortured, much like I'm having right now. So I understand what Jeffrey went through. Just thank God I am not as sick as Mr. Pope was. Mr. Pope was a nice man. He wouldn't hurt a flea. He was always trying to pass the olive branch of peace. I'm not sure why he decided to mention Diane Cox in his report to say that she was out protesting against him.
Excuse me, Ms. Hubbard, your time has expired.
I'm sorry.
You can finish your thought if you'd like.
Okay. I'm not sure why he did that, except for there's a long list of people who don't want to work in the HIV field out of fear. Ashley Blakely, fired, retaliation. Sylvia Hubbard being sued for speaking up for Jeffrey Pope. And here's my report with documents to prove what I'm saying is not false statements against myself and Jeffrey Pope.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hubbard, for sharing that with us. Our next speaker?
Our next speaker is Dr. Hollyfield.
Dr. Hollyfield, would you like to wait until your item is presented?
Okay.
And after Dr. Hollyfield is Mr. Robert Keenan.
First of all, thanks for calling me Dr. Curtis, because Roxanne Hubbard doesn't think I should be called that. As she put in an email and sent it to Rob Renzi, Dr. Hollifield shouldn't be called doctor. But for the matter at hand, Has the CRA board ever determined whether or not Big Bend Cares does any statistically significant good in this community? Did Big Bend Cares deserve the $1.5 million that Roxanne Manning handed over to them with the blessing of Curtis Richardson, the chamber, and the leadership Tallahassee types that run this town? We know that the Frenchtown South Side Advisory Committee and the NAACP fought Big Bend Cares, but the gentrifying white power structure would not be denied and shoved it down our throats anyway. We know that Big Bend Cares is not truthful and was found by a unanimous federal court jury to have defamed Jeffrey Pope, one of his own clients, suffering with HIV, as Sylvia Hubbard has already alluded to. And what does Big Bend Cares do besides sell ugly artwork to add money to its coffers? Have they ever been audited to determine if they are at all effective mitigating the ravages of HIV in the black community? What we do know is that HIV in the black community is a public health disaster and should be declared as such. A public health disaster that the political establishment ignores. In Leon County, Curtis, blacks were about 10 times more likely than whites to be diagnosed with HIV and AIDS. Yet Curtis says what we need on the south side is a police station. Really, Curtis? It gets worse. Blacks account for 83% of HIV/AIDS deaths in Leon County. And we're 7 times more likely than whites to die from HIV/AIDS.
Excuse me, Dr. Hollifield, your time has expired.
I need more time. We know that the $1.5 million wasted on CarePoint does not benefit the black community. There is no tax increment to improve the community when the money goes to a nonprofit such as CarePoint. CarePoint pays no taxes. Perhaps Curtis can explain how there can be a tax increment when no taxes are paid. No, another 30 seconds. And what does Big Bend Cares do besides sell ugly artwork? How effective can they be when they defame some people and call the police on others, such as me? As for the annual report, Big Bend Cares is in default of the development agreement on multiple levels. It was due on December 18th, 2018. It was not produced until January 2019.
Dr. Hollifield, if you would conclude your remarks, please.
15 seconds. Clearly, Roxanne Manning allows Big Bend Cares to make up its own rules without penalty. The exchange property was supposed to be returned at closing, which was more than a year ago. This has not happened. The only people being banned from the Big Bend Cares are black. This is in violation of the requirement that they do not discriminate directly or indirectly on the basis of race. Big Bend Cares should not receive another dollar from the CRA.
Dr. Hollifield,
the fact that they are in default of the development agreement and funds that Big Bend Cares received while in default should be returned to the Frenchtown CRA immediately, Curtis.
Dr. Hollifield, your time is up. Thank you.
And our last speaker is Mr. Robert Keenan.
Okay, Mr. Keenan. Good morning. If you'd give us your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Commissioner. My name is Robert Keenan. I own Cornucopia Wealth Management, and I've been located in that business for 38 years on West Brevard Street. And I am also the chairperson of the Executive Committee on Economic Development for the Tallahassee NAACP. My purpose here today, and you know, I requested that a certain item be moved from the agenda. And the reason I made that request is because the way the current system is being run, there are no rules in terms of making decisions in regard to projects. And there is no system. And so what I'm recommending is that we require all people who are requesting funds to come through the same door. And I assume that the same door is the CRA committee, because at that time, the community get an opportunity to have input and also get an opportunity to vet those particular projects. So what I'm suggesting is we look at the process that we're currently using, and in fact, I think you'll find that the process we're currently using is the cause for a lot of problems that we currently have. So I'm suggesting that we come up with a system that everybody get an opportunity to present their request and have a system wherein they can be adequately reviewed and decision to be made in regard to the CRA. You've seen two speakers before me, and all of them are issues that could have been avoided had this process been handled in a reasonable manner. So I hope you as the new commissioner will not repeat and will not try to function in the same way that the past CRA has functioned, and conduct yourselves in a way that we can make significant improvement in the Black community and in Frenchtown, and allow folks in the Frenchtown area to have input of the decision being made in regard to expenditures on their behalf. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak into you, and of course I expect to speak to you again, each individual, to follow up on my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Keenan. Okay, that brings us to consent items. Item number 5, is there a motion? Now, just as a recap, items 5.02 and 5.03 have been moved from consent. So 5.01 is the only item on consent. Is there a
consent agenda?
The mayor moves the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second by Doctor. I want to call you Doctor. Commissioner.
Thank you.
Diane Williams-Cox. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. The motion carries unanimously. Item number 6, 6.01, an update on the Greater Bond Neighborhood First Plan. And I think Ashley Edwards, our Director of Parks, Recreation, and Neighborhood Affairs, is going to do that presentation. Good morning, Ashley.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Since y'all adopted the plan a month ago, we have literally hit the ground running. We are very excited. We've met with members of the Community Action Team to develop and agree on an approach as we move forward. We are working tirelessly with the city engineering staff to develop the site plan designs that we'll need in place to work on the linear park in terms of the infrastructure improvements that need to be made to the open ditch in that area. We've begun conversations about design for the park itself. We actually have a meeting tomorrow with the Community Action Team to start vetting those amenities that they'd like to see in the park. We'll be meeting next month with the Greater Bond Neighborhood Association and members of the Greater Bond neighborhood itself to further vet and get input on what the things are that they would like to see as we develop the park itself. We also are working with representatives of the Neighborhood Safety and Crime Prevention Committee on a community engagement event that will be held next week. We're very excited as we move forward, and this is all just with a month under our belt. So we have no doubt that we're going to have great updates for you in the future. We want to come back when we have substantive progress that's been made and keep you all informed, but we are making progress, and we're very excited about it. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, any questions for Ashley?
Thank
Great
you.
update. Thank you all. We are just so excited about the plan and how it's moving forward, and just really excited about the changes that are going to be made and brought to the Bond community. I talked to Ms. Edwards, the Neighborhood Association president, last night, and they are very excited about what's about to happen in Bond. Okay, item 6.02, the Frenchtown Placemaking Plan. I think Devin is going to do that update. Mr. Devin Levin.
Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners.
Good morning, Devin.
Morning, Devin.
So this plan came back in September before you guys. It was approved in September, and just want to give an update from September. I know some of you weren't on the board at that time, but this will get you caught up to speed of where we've been. One thing that I want to do is talk about projects that are underway, but I think we need to step back first and talk about what we've accomplished. This group has been working really hard, not only just since September, but since like around 2016. They've been involved, and we got a few of the members here today that are on that working group, and they're here to be supportive of this as well. You'll see some check marks that just popped up. We've done bike lanes on Macomb Street. We've got traffic calming installed on 4th Avenue. We're working, the art walk is going continuously, monthly. You see the art walk at Miss Annie's. Housing demolitions with code enforcement have started. And we had some traffic counts that were done, so we could get some traffic counts before any improvements happen. And so that way we can follow up to see what we're doing to improve the traffic within the Frenchtown neighborhood.
That's the traffic cop right there.
So, it's easy to tell you what we've done, but I think it's better to show you. So I got some photos here for you to see. This is Macomb Street before, and then now after with the bike lanes. And I want to give a shout out to Alan Seacrease and Steve Schaefer both for helping us with this. It's been a team effort. We've been working with other city departments to leverage where we can, funding, manpower, whatever we can do to make these things happen. Again, traffic calming on Macomb, same group helped us with this, and we're just, anytime we can come together, we want to come together to make these things happen with the community. This is our code enforcement department. They've been really helpful with us to get some of these demolitions done. You can see before, this is a house in the community that was, in disrepair, and this is what it looks like now. If you were to drive by there, we have a vacant lot, and this is something that was really important to the community, is that we didn't have these vacant houses sitting there, so we can get things ready for some affordable housing to come on. Just another one on Rollins Street.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Who does the private property owner still owns the property, or is it city property now? I mean, who owns it?
Rick, can I?
These are code violations, so the property is still owned by the property owner.
Okay.
The demolitions are paid for by the CRA, these examples are, but they still own the property with liens appropriate for the city to recover.
Okay. Are there opportunities for us to purchase the property for affordable housing?
There may be instances where the property owner would like to dispose of the property. Anytime the city would acquire a property like this, it would have to be a willing seller situation.
Okay.
So it's up to the owner of the property.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Devin. Sorry.
No problem. So let's get back to those projects that are underway. First, I want to start off with, again, showing you that these are the ones we've completed that we said we'd have done within about 3 months. We're right on track with a lot of this that we've put into the plan. Something we're working on right now are sign toppers for the historic Frenchtown area. That would look something like this. So, Steve Schaefer and I have met, and he's working on helping us implement this right now. So thanks to them for helping us with that. We're working on a historical piece in the plaza of the Standard. If you remember, $50,000 when the Standard happened was set aside to do a historical piece. This is our first concept, and again, working with Steve Schaefer to get the implementation of this taken care of. And we're hoping to see this come up sometime with the opening of the Standard, so that way it all coincides to give a visual to the neighborhood. The planning department staff right now is working on a pattern book design guidelines. We know that the character of the community is really important and how we move forward, so we're working on a draft to bring back before the working group and the community to say, this is what we've heard from you, are we there? And then we'll be bringing that forward for other folks to see and make sure that we're meeting the community's vision of moving forward. And then as of December, our working group meeting on 12/14, we met and we discussed our priorities to see if our priorities were still the same. And we had a list of priorities in the plan. And some of those priorities have shifted a little of what's the most important right now. And that number one is traffic calming on Brevard Street. And then number two is the enhancements to Macomb Street with some sidewalks and things of that nature. Because right now it's a little hard to get across Macomb. If you're familiar with down there, it's not a lot of crossing. So myself, Steve Schaefer, met last week. We sat down and he and I worked out a plan that we're going to be discussing to start hitting these and see what we can do on the design side and bring something back to the community to say, is this what you're looking for? So that way we can keep it moving. And hopefully within the next month or so, you'll hear some more from us about that. Any questions?
Any questions of Devin? Commissioner Williams Cox?
Great job, Devin, and I see from the smiles and grins behind you that you all are in lockstep. I know the traffic cop. She's a former teacher. The question that I have, though, is last night there was a gentleman here who had a suggestion of putting some bricks out for
Bulldog.
Bulldog, yeah. Bulldog wanted to put some historical bricks out for folks who are no longer in the community but were well known in the community. And I know that our city manager had him talk with someone on, talk to our assistant city manager, Wayne Tedder. So I want to make sure that you all are aware of that, and so that conversation will happen. Also, Devin, you responded to an email from Delatry Hollinger to bring him up to speed on some of the things that have been going on.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm hoping that there is communication with the Urban League and NAACP, because you all are all in the Frenchtown area. So I'm hoping that there's conversation and collaboration on the things that are happening there. So is that occurring?
Yes, and we're welcome anyone to come to the table that wants to work in Frenchtown, and we're just asking them to come ready to work, come bring what resources you have, and let's all work together. That's what we're really looking for, and Delatry and I have been in contact.
Okay, very good.
And if I could add regarding the funding issue that Mr. Keenan raised, absolutely the process is, as Devin brings back those items that need to be funded, they're going to go through the process. Yeah. They're going to go through the Citizen Advisory Committee, and then they'll come through the board for final approval by you all.
Okay, Mr. Mayor?
Devin, I love your enthusiasm.
Yes.
I love your commitment to this project, and I am so appreciative of your willingness to make sure that the community partners are at the table and that we are moving forward together. Thank you for a wonderful presentation, and I am looking forward to personally getting involved to see us bring these ideas to fruition as well. Excuse me.
All right, Mayor. Commissioner Matlow?
Yeah, thanks, Devin. I think you're really taking the lead on this. You've done an excellent job. I know there's conflicting opinions within the neighborhood, and everybody has an opinion, but it's important, I think, that if we move forward, everybody has to show up. Everybody's invited to. We're ready to make this investment, but we need to get a plan, and we need to start implementing it. And to do that, we need to show up and get going right away.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll say a
Mr.
final
Bryant?
comment. Yes. But let me thank you for, number one, the planning process. Because when you plan, you ready yourself to execute. And obviously, the engagement of the community undergirds the success of the plan. So commendations for a job well done.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Devin. Okay. All right. Item 6.03 was originally on consent and was pulled from consent. It's acceptance of the Big Bend Cares 2018 annual report. Is there a motion for acceptance? There's a motion. And
You said so moved.
yes.
Good.
And a second. A motion by Board Member Matlow, seconded by Board Member Bryant. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Board Member Williams Cox.
Yes, I would like to have a little discussion. The annual report, I'm new to this, but I've been around where annual reports have been produced, and never have I seen a cover letter to an annual report to be as excessive as this one was. And I only comment because I was named in it. Yeah. And I should not have been named in it. And I'm not sure the reason, and I understand that Mr. Renzi he's not able to be with us today. Is there someone from the board who can explain why we received such an expansive cover letter to the annual report, and why was it important to note that Diane Williams Cox, who is a current city commissioner, who at the time was a private citizen, participated in her right to protest?
There is a member of the board, Dan Taylor, and I believe Jake Kiker as well, is here to answer some questions about Big Bend Cares.
Are either of you in a position to respond on behalf of Rob? I think the issue is specifically.
Sure.
Okay. Could you give us your name and address for the record?
I'm Dan Taylor. I live at 1224 Mitchell Avenue.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
I'm the chairman of the board of Big Bend Cares and CarePoint. So I'm sorry, what's the question?
The question is, why was it necessary to include me in your report? Because you were reporting, it was an annual report, but in your cover letter, I think it was about 3 pages, cover letter, that you included me in your report along with the other items. Because with the annual report, typically, it's basically introducing, here's the annual report. So I'm not understanding why it was necessary for a letter, substantive letter like this to be included.
For some time, many years, we've been the subject of criticism and lies and fairy tales by squeaky wheels we're well aware of. And we took the opportunity to provide a cover letter with the report to address some of those issues. And you were in it because you are indeed on the board and you did protest.
As a private citizen?
Yes, ma'am.
Not as a city commissioner?
Correct. But you are now a city commissioner and we are discussing our report.
Okay. I appreciate your response. I do not appreciate being included in the report, but I appreciate your response. Thank you.
Miss Manning,
Commissioner,
Miss
Board Member Matlow.
Miss Manning, does our request for an annual report include a request to include information about protesters and protests of the site?
Our annual reports, if you see in the agenda item, the content of those reports is determined by what is required from the development agreement. And we do spell that out very specifically, and it's things like, the number of uninsured patients treated, that kind of thing. A cover letter is a separate document.
Okay. But so there's no requirement to list protesters or protests in the past of the development?
No.
Okay. I think in the future we should just restrain from having that included, if you will, in future annual reports and just stick to the facts of what the project actually brings forward. This kind of brings to light a bigger conversation, and I know the reputation of the CRA has been tarnished a bit in the past, and we're trying to set a new course and start with a fresh vision. I know, Chairman Richardson, you talk a lot about we fail to control the narrative, and I think we have a good opportunity here to just start anew, really come out, express the vision of the future of the CRA, listen to our citizens advisory committees, and really put our best foot forward. So I'd like to request, if we have time in the next month, depending on schedules, that we...
Hold that thought, because we're not there yet.
Okay.
But I know where you're going.
Okay.
So let's do that when we talk about board member issues.
Okay.
Okay?
Can I just say that we are well aware of reputations being tarnished, which is one of the reasons we included a cover letter with the report.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any other discussion? Questions? Mayor?
Yeah, I just want to, Mr. Taylor, Mr. Kiker, thank you for coming. I know that you're serving a voluntary capacity. You're in an awkward position defending the staff's annual report that's here. And I know that there's some issues, that should be addressed, but I do appreciate you coming, and I do recognize a bit of the awkward position that you are in a voluntary capacity.
And may I have one more? Just on, no, I actually did have a point on this issue because it was in the Ms. Manning. It says in the report that Rob Renzi requested to change their mind and buy the property in April, and we were set to close on May 15th. But the BBC board didn't formally approve an offer till May 29th. So it seems like they didn't formally approve an offer until after the closing date. And it says that because there was a formal offer, you did not have the authority to approve or deny the request. But it's my understanding that, and Madam Attorney, if I'm correct, shouldn't the prevailing ruling of the board be what's in effect if that was already set to close? And I think if changing that order would have required a special meeting or some sort to actually stop the closing.
Well, I think this is one of those instances where
in an effort to make sure that the community, in terms of taking it to the advisory committee, got an opportunity to hear that offer. Because this board meets, I think, once a month for the most part, certainly at any opportunity, some, that could have been raised and some clarification could have been given. But I think in this instance, it was an effort, from what I understand, to try to get whatever public comment that could occur before it was actually brought to the board.
Okay, and I understand that. It's my understanding that the board wanted this to close on May 15th, and that decision, there was a decision made to delay that, and it wasn't this board's decision. So I think if we're in that process in the future, maybe we need to come before and have a special meeting to make that decision. And, as we know, that decision ended up denied, and we're in a place that has drawn criticism, and I think rightfully so, because we had a direction and we didn't live up to it. And I think the board ultimately agreed that, we wanted to maintain the property. So at least that discretion be left to the board in the future.
And I think you're correct technically that it should have been brought back, but I think because the board did meet multiple times during that period, and it was a different board, and I think what you're doing right now is setting what criteria you want. Absolutely. And that's what's going to be abided by this group, this staff.
Yeah, well, we're not setting that criteria. It takes 3 votes to set criteria.
Exactly.
And so we will certainly be discussing that and how we go forward. I just want to make sure we understand one board member does not set direction. Any other questions, comments? There's a motion and a second. All in favor of accepting the Big Bend Cares 2018 annual report, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign?
Nay. No.
No? Okay. Motion carries 4-1 with Board Member Williams-Cox dissenting. That brings us to item 6.04, acceptance of the status report on CRA projects. That item was previously item 5.03 and was pulled from consent by Commissioner Williams-Cox. Is there a motion to accept the status report?
I'll move to accept.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. Motion by Board Member Matlow, seconded by Board Member Bryant. Questions or comments? Board Member Williams-Cox.
My comment was I asked that this be pulled so that, because it's a vast list, and there are some items here that may need a little looking at to bump them along, get them moving. And so I wanted the opportunity for the public, if they wanted to weigh in on some of these projects. So that's why I asked that it be moved from the consent agenda. But I think that in our briefing, we talked about the possibility that we need to take a look and see those items that maybe are not going to move and get that money put back into the coffers, and look at those items that are going to be moving and figure out what we need to do to get them moving if they're being stalled.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries 4-0 with the mayor being out of the chamber at this point. Okay, we're on item number 7, unagended items, I'm sorry. Are there any speakers for unagended items?
Yes, Chairman. Mr. K. Lenoris Barber is here to speak.
Kenny, come on up. Give us your name and address for the record. You got 3 minutes.
I don't need 3 minutes.
Okay.
Kayla Norris Barber, 1326 Colorado Street. Actually, I have a special request. In an effort to enhance community engagement between the agency and the area, on behalf of the citizens of the area, we request that your next 2 CRA board meetings be held in the neighborhood. The March 28th meeting be held at Lincoln Center, and the May the 16th meeting be held at Smith-Williams. Additionally, we'd like to have a workshop scheduled relatively soon to discuss board structure and its performance as it relates to the CRA redevelopment plan.
Okay. What I would suggest, Mr. Barber, is that you get with the chairman of the Citizen Advisory Committee, because I think a request like that would...
We didn't elect the Citizen Advisory Committee.
A request like that would need to be vetted through the Citizen Advisory Committee and brought to the CRA board.
To have a meeting
for consideration
in the neighborhood? I mean, that's your decision.
What? No, I mean, what you requested in terms of your second request, not...
A workshop, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And it will be up to this board to determine if we want to do a meeting outside of City Hall. Are these meetings broadcast?
Yes.
Yeah, see, and that's another issue. If we're there, there's not an ability to broadcast the meetings, and so people who are watching on WCOT aren't able to have access to the meeting.
Wayne, is that a big issue?
We can, like we did at the City Commission retreat, we've done it in a different way. So it's possible to do it outside of City Hall, but it's time consuming and it's costly.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll take your request under consideration.
Please consider it.
Yeah, oh, of course. All right.
Mr. Chair,
Board Member Williams-Cox.
in the event that we're not able to take this meeting to the neighborhood, I would recommend that we do go to the neighborhood and have a meeting with the community in those areas that Mr. Barber mentioned, and we can set that, based on with the collaboration of all of us, to just go into the neighborhoods and have a meeting with the residents.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a board meeting, but
Right.
a regular meeting.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And there have been times I've attended the Citizen Advisory Committee meetings. Yeah. So, yeah, we can do that. Okay. And of course, if more than one of us is going to be there, it would have to be properly noticed. Okay. All right. Any other speakers?
No, sir.
Okay. No other speakers, and that brings us to item number 8, which is board discussion. I think you...
I'm sorry, Dr. Hollifield, did you want to speak? Ms.
Okay,
Hubbard?
come on up, Ms. Hubbard. I don't think we had your speaker form.
I apologize, I didn't see if you were supposed to speak a second time.
All right. We got you.
I just need 2 minutes.
Okay.
In response to Big Bean Cares. Did they leave? Board chair. Up until Mr. Renzi was hired at Big Bean Cares, I worked with Shisha Inc., Barbara Gradington, who helped to draft to get the federal funding in for HIV patients. I was on staff there and helped to draft that. So Big Bean Cares benefited from some of the work that I did along with Barbara Gradington. And the community had a good working relationship until they hired Rob Renzi. And he started making all these fairy tales up that people are trying to close him. Big Bean Cares provides services for people in the area that's needed. But it's the aggression of their executive director that is causing all this confusion and his lies. It's nobody but his staff. And I think their board members should be made aware of that.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hubbard. Any other speakers?
No, sir.
Okay. We're at item number 8, board discussion. Board Member Matlow.
Yeah, just to pick up on that thought, I guess. I think we have a great opportunity here to really set a bold direction for where we want to go. I think we're all kind of in agreement. Like, we really need to get into Frenchtown and Bond and South City and make some real changes. So I'd like for us as a collective body to kind of set that vision and direct staff and let them know what programs are important to us, what we'd like to see, what programs are important to the Citizens Committee, such as affordable housing, and really kind of spell out even individual programs if we'd like to bring those like we did in the retreat, and just kind of have that same structure where we can just casually talk about where we want to go. And I think it's also a good opportunity to let people know how the agency operates. Right now, we're organized by a collection of state statutes, different interlocal agreements, different votes that were passed, and I I know there's been talks about bylaws a few times in the past, but I think it would be nice to just have one document that clearly explains how we operate, how the executive director operates, who they answer to, so we could just have a document to show people this is our standard, this is how we operate, and this is how we're going to move forward. So my motion would be that we come back for a workshop, time permitting, schedules permitting, if it's feasible to do it with something already scheduled, Wayne, or not.
So your next CRA meeting is on 3/28. We have City Commission regular meetings on 2/20 and 3/16 at 1 and 4. So we have workshops at 1 and regular meetings at 4. So those would be the next available meetings, if you will. It's already on the books.
Okay.
I would imagine it would be maybe an hour. You think?
Let's say about an hour.
Most, yeah.
Would it be best for people to tag it on a day we're already meeting, or?
Well, my thought is if we want the community to be involved, we need to do it at a time that's convenient for them, which would not necessarily be at 9:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
You know, it would be in the evening, in the afternoon, early, 5:30 or whatever, as folks are getting off work, to be able to do that. I would love to be able to communicate and listen, to be able to make this process as transparent, accountable, and establish and maintain trust as possible.
Yeah. Let me do this. Let me just ensure that there is a consensus that we want to do this workshop. Just head nods. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So we will move forward on that. I agree with you, Board Member Williams-Cox, that it should be in the evening and accessible to people who would want to come and, if nothing else, hear the discussion and dialogue. I think that would go a long ways, Board Member Matlow, to letting the community know what we do, how we do it, and begin to rebuild trust in the community about the CRA. So yeah, I agree with that. So Wayne, let's work together to find a time and date that we can do this. And I think it should be maybe somewhere central, but we'll work on that and give you guys some options, and we'll go from there. Okay? All right. Anything else, Board Member Matlow?
No, that's all.
Okay. Anybody else? I just wanted to remind you all that the Casanas Village ribbon cutting is this afternoon at 1:30. If you're interested in attending, I will be there. I think, the mayor, your schedule?
I'm not going to be able to.
Oh, okay. All right.
Carrying the water.
Okay. All right. Well, I will represent the board and commission, I guess, if nobody else is going to be there. Anything else?
There's also tonight at Jack McLean, I believe it is.
Oh, yes, CRTPA.
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
Yes, I meant to mention that. There is I guess, town hall meeting on the community, Capital Regional Transportation Planning Agency. They're having a community meeting at Jack McLean Center this evening at, you know what time?
I think it's 5:30.
Yeah, I think it's 5:30, 6 o'clock. Anything else? There being no further business to come before the board, we'll stand adjourned. Did we get you out in time? Board member? I was thinking about you.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I got to go read some 30. Awesome.
Thank you, Mayor.